Welcome to Country Fried Rock, where we have conversations with songwriters for real music lovers who enjoy context and musical connection. We are Country Fried Rock. I'm your host, Sloan Spencer. Today on Country Fried Rock, I'm talking with Scott Miller, recently of Scott Miller and the Commonwealth, whom I first got to know as a musician through the V-Roys, a band whose players have gone on to be a huge part of the Americana scene, originally with John Paul Keith, who left the band and was replaced by Mick Harrison. But Miller is a songwriter whose songs stand up in everything from a solo guitar performance to a full-on rock band, with duos and trios in between. His album from the fall of 2013, Big Big World, reins in some of his buddy Doug Lancio's musical riffs and partners them with Miller's lyrics, with the two of them providing the majority of the instrumentation. Big Big World, as a title, lies in contrast to what Miller is currently doing, as he recently returned to take over the family cattle farm in rural Virginia. We'll check in straight from that cattle farm via cell phone with Scott Miller, today on Country Fried Rock. My guest today on Country Fried Rock is Scott Miller, straight from the farm in Stanton, with a U, Virginia. Welcome.
Thank you. That's so awesome that you know how to pronounce Stanton.
Well, it's like Faulkner throwing in the extra U just because.
That's right.
We were talking a little bit before the official conversation started. I did not realize that you were actually from Virginia.
Yeah, that's, hence the name Scott Miller in the Commonwealth. Yeah, my peoples are from really Bath County and Highland County, 120 west of here. That's where we're from.
But the real question is, what brought you back?
I grew up on a cattle farm here, which is what we did growing up, and then, of course, nobody remembers this Dennis the Menace episode.
Okay.
But there was an episode where he stuck gum on the back of his, standardized test.
Yeah.
And got rated as a genius.
Okay.
So I got into college.
Yes.
So I left a piece of gum on the back of my SAT. So I got into William and Mary, which is like, wow. So
yes.
I went there, and then I moved. As soon as I got out of college, I knew what I wanted to do. And plus, what I studied for was completely useless at the time.
Although, we could probably have a pretty interesting conversation about current international news on that topic.
Hey, Russian studies. Well, see, it was officially called Russian and Soviet. The program was what they called interdisciplinary, which meant you had intense language, you had intense Russian history, you had the literature, economics. I mean, it spanned the thing, and basically what it was a feeder program for the NSA. I graduated in 90, but in 89, when the wall fell, it all became useless.
I can remember one thing from my studies that were not to the same degree, but ya nie znаю, which roughly translate, I don't know.
I don't know. The other one you should know is что это. There you go. Что это is it's what they say. It completely encompasses the Russian mindset. What is to be done? What are you going to do? You know? They're not passive, but their history is so passionate, and they're just, bless them. Their literature's awesome, though.
Oddly, the reason that I know that and why I took the course in the first place was I'm obsessed with propaganda posters, and I always have been. And I used to collect these Soviet propaganda posters, which were kind of real stylized, kind of German expressionist.
Yeah, I've got a big bunch of them. Yeah.
Cool. And they would give people who visited, they would give them the baby Lenin pins. And I mean, real creepy.
Yeah. Well, I should bring you some of that stuff. Because my wife is an interior designer, and there's no way she's going to let me hang those things anywhere. So.
You got a barn?
I do have a barn.
That's hilarious. I will have to bring mine up. The one particular one that sticks out to me was a propaganda poster about how the Americans were going to do chemical warfare on the Russians, and you needed to carry a gas mask in your backpack.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's crazy. Anyway, touring has changed for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I had thought that when I moved home to take over the farm, because my dad is 85, I was a whoops baby. So I thought, foolishly, that I could do what I do from anywhere. And it turns out it's not so easy, not so much. Being 3 hours from Nashville, and that's where a lot of the business is, and the publishing companies and everything I had to do was very convenient, and not so much here. And there's not really an airport here to get out of. But on the other hand, when I was living in Knoxville and doing 200 dates a year, I didn't have anything to do during the day either. So I got stuff to do now. It's just certain times of the year. We raise beef cattle, so it's not as intense as like dairy farming, but
Right.
there are certain portions of the year that I have to be here. And I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it.
You've also had musical changes as well in at least the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, that was more like to shake myself up a little bit. You know the Randy Newman album, Bad Love? There's a song on there called I'm Dead and I Don't Know It. There's a line in there where he says, every record that I make is like a record that I made, just not as good. And so it's like I was making the same record a number of times, you know? I mean, I try to write the best songs I can, and my musical genres are not that wide. My duffel bag is not that full as far as being a musician. So this time I was like really wanted to get outside of that, and so I had known Doug Lancio, the guy that produced this record, back when he toured with Patty Griffin, and he had melodies and stuff that he didn't know what to do with, and I got lyrics and notes that I don't know what to do with, so we put them together.
I'm Sloan Spencer. This is Country Fried Rock. Find us on iTunes, Spreaker, Podfeed, Player FM, Blueberry, Stitcher, Gigadial, Digital Podcast, and some great apps including Agogo and Swell in both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Wherever you listen, you'll find Country Fried Rock. Never miss an episode.
Hey, this is Scott Miller on Country Fried Rock. There was an album I did for Crying Out Loud, 2009.
Okay.
We started that record together, and then, this happened, that happened. He became John Hyatt's band leader and got busy with that, and I ended up finishing that record with a guy named Michael Webb.
How did y'all end up kind of looping back together then?
Well, because I was like, this is what I want to do this, you know. And it was Patty's studio in Nashville where he works out of, and so he has time during the mornings before he actually does work for Patty or for other bands. He would record like a drum track and a guitar track, and it could go on for 10 or 15 minutes. It would just be this thing, reverby thing. And I'd either drive down, go down and spend a couple days and just listen to those things with him in the studio, and go down the hall and type, sit up here and work on them a little bit, and just sort of take a lot of these half-finished songs and ideas that I had and try to force them into these different kind of melodies and different forms of music.
Did you find that having to use someone else's parameters like that, did that open you up to some new things creatively?
I'd like to do it again. I would approach it a lot more freer now, I think. It was really, musically I didn't feel hemmed in at all. That was very freeing. I didn't quite know. My songs are always sort of a point A to a point B kind of story thing. That's my jam. That's my thing.
Right.
And songs don't have to be that way. And I could write that other way. And so I wish I had really sort of let myself loosen up, and I would do it again. Maybe I'll find somebody else musically to jump on top of next time.
Are you finding that you were maybe keeping things too rigid for yourself in terms of your approach?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm Presbyterian. Yeah.
I've seen you live in a couple of different setups. One was I was fortunate to sit in on a TV taping, and it was a solo, you and a guitar and a stool. And then also I saw you, I think, at Albina Skunk Fest with Raina Gellert.
Yeah, Raina Gellert, she's a fiddle player of some renown I've been playing with for a couple of years now.
Those were very, very different musical styles. And so when you're talking about you kind of do one thing, they certainly sounded different from the listener standpoint.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, and I think when I say I do one thing, it's sort of like my songwriting and sort of what I try to do with it. And,
sure.
And again, teaming up with Raina, which was, a couple of years ago, we were both doing a West Virginia mountain stage, and she was playing with Abigail Washburn. And Raina was like, I've heard of you. My husband's a fan of yours. And we ended up having a real fun time, and so I invited her to do some shows, and she really opened me up with her approach to fiddle and that kind of thing. So it's been a slow train, but I'm slowly trying to, change a little bit. Glacier.
In terms of the touring we mentioned earlier, it is changing for you just due to the logistics of needing to be on a cattle farm at certain times. Also, in terms of structure, what do you have lined up? Solo, duo, band? What does that look like?
Well, yeah, now it's even more confusing. Before I would do like a strictly solo show, or I would take the Commonwealth out, which was at times a 5-piece band, with keys and guitar and bass and drums. And now it's like I've got this other middle ground where it's either me and Raina as a duo, or the bass player, Bryn Davies, He plays with Guy Clark and Tony Rice and whatnot. The three of us will go out and play.
Ah.
And then sometimes it'll just be me and Bryn. So now it's like, yeah, when my booking agent calls, I'm like, well, what do they want? So many different permutations and combinations now of what I'm doing.
I'm Sloan Spencer. This is Country Fried Rock. Country Fried Rock is helping prevent musician suicide. For the last 2 years, our official charity has been Nucci's Space, a nonprofit organization removing barriers to mental health care for the music community of Athens, Georgia. This model program addresses everything from the need for affordable rehearsal space to loaner gear, as well as direct mental health services and primary care for musicians. We've got a ton of ways you can help them out at countryfriedrock.bandcamp.com. 2 incredible album compilations, baby onesies, check it all out. Get some great music for yourself or for a friend and make a difference.
Hey, this is Scott Miller on Country Fried Rock, but you really ought to go over to thescottmiller.com and look at the donkey lady pictures.
What does that bring for you musically?
It really helps me approach. Well, look, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now,
Right.
So these are the same songs, and I'm out there playing them. So it really helps me approach them differently. I think it brings a lot of life to them. And, who wants to go see a performer breathe through his set? I've paid money and seen guys do that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me mad. And that's not how we do it or how I was raised to do it in Knoxville. You think about the great entertainers that came out of East Tennessee, and I call it an entertainment work ethic, and it's not, some people could call it cheesy, but these people have paid their money, and they deserve an entertaining show.
People tend to fall into pretty strict camps of once a song is recorded, it is a fixed entity versus that was just a day in the life, and it continues to morph.
Yeah, no, it's kind of more, how can you, well, I don't know. Maybe if I was really, really great and, and wrote songs like Paul Simon or Bob Dylan, I would go, yes, this is perfection, and why mess with it?
When you were working on this stretched out recording that you did with Doug, how did that work?
Yeah, well, basically, I played bass on some of this record. I used some members of the Commonwealth, like Sean, my drummer, who's been with me forever. I'd bring him in, or if we couldn't do it, or bring Raina in. And Joe Garcia is a pedal steel player that I've played with a lot, and he came in. But basically, it was just me and Doug. He basically had sort of a drum guitar track, and then I had the lyrics. We put bass on there. If there's anything else we wanted to put, we'd do it and move on. Cool. And more of it was like taking these 10 and 15-minute things and paring them down,
You hinted that maybe you might free yourself up next time that you go in and do something new. Are you already looking in that direction?
Yeah, I've sort of, even the last couple of weeks, writing comes in spurts with me now, and I don't know if it's mainly out of just because I'm old and inspiration doesn't come that often, or because I'm old and I've got other stuff to do. So, this has been like the last couple of weeks. I'm supposed to be working on my taxes, so I'm down in my office and I start picking up my guitar and doing other stuff. Is
anything sticking out to you that's different with it?
Well, not at this point, because it's basically me and the guitar. My ideas are to try to do something. Well, I don't want to hem myself in here, but
sure.
I want to do something with just me and maybe more of like along the lines of with Doug, something with electric but very soft and reverby and vibey. And try, again, to make a whole record that is an entire vibe. You know what I mean? Where I try to write the best songs I can, and those hit different styles, well, like 2 different styles or 3. And so I'll have a rock song, a bluegrass song, and a ballad or a story song or something, and try to do something that is more consistent. So, I can do that here. We don't need record labels anymore, and we don't need studios anymore.
I'm Sloan Spencer. This is Country Fried Rock. You can find Country Fried Rock on great radio stations like 91.1 The Globe in Goshen, Indiana, Wildman Steve Radio Network from Auburn, Alabama, around the world. Online from Texas at Root Hog Radio, part of Radio Free Americana, from Mobile, Alabama on the Mod Mobilian Radio Network. Listen in Georgetown, California at KFOK 96.1, from Kodiak, Alaska on KMXT, KSRQ, Grand Forks, Minnesota, KKRN, Round Mountain, California, KDRP, solar-powered radio from Dripping Springs, Texas, WALW, Moulton, Alabama, and other great stations like CJXF, Calgary, Canada, 89.1 The Lakeshore, and yourhometownradio.com.
Hey, this is Scott Miller. I really, really, really wish you would go to thescottmiller.com and buy my new record called Big Big World.
Speaking of which, you've had your own label for a while.
Yeah, I was a cutting edge on that one. So, Sugar Hill was an awesome label when I first signed to it, and then it got bought out. And the Welk who bought it out really was running it more like a major label instead of what it was, man, an independent label with integrity that maintained artists. And it couldn't be in that there. So that's right, 2006 or so that I was like, you guys probably don't want me anyway. How about if I move along? And that was amicable. And on a business sense, it's more what I say, it's more about keeping your money. You're making this money. I'm selling the same amount of records, really. Every time I go out, it depends on, how they were feeling in the publicity department, whether I sold them in 2 months or whether I sold them in a year. Why not keep that money?
When I talk with people who have their own labels, it has very different meanings to different people. Is it something that you're doing to protect your own music, or are you also looking to reach out to others and bring them aboard?
Well, yeah, like trying to do something with Raina. If the distribution that I have can help anybody, I have no problem doing that, and I don't need to make a dime. But somebody else can do it, too. It's not like you need me,
What's working?
Well, doing it myself is working, although it's harder, and it's not as glamorous as it used to be. See, with the V-Roys, when I first got signed with that band, and that was still when the music industry was still old school with big major labels, big expensive accounts, and you could still smoke on airplanes.
Yeah.
Good life.
That was Steve Earle's label.
And Jack Emerson. Jack Emerson was his
yeah.
And we did a record for them, and then we got signed to Warner. Go up there with the big boys for just about a year, and that all fell through. But now it's not as glamorous. There's no more like being the aloof artist who plays his show and gets on his bus and drives away.
No.
You have to interact with your fans, and you're more personal with your fans. And that's why we have social media and that kind of thing, which I'm not real comfortable with, but, no job is perfect. People are weird. It's a big, big world. So I prefer cows. I'll take cows, man. I'm good with them. I thought about starting a dude ranch where, people would come there and work for free, write songs in the evening, and they would pay me money.
With festivals, sometimes I talk with musicians who are like, dude, I never get a chance to hear anybody. And other times people are like, wow, I get to hear everything. It's great. Have you gotten to hear any other music lately?
No, I hate music. Are you familiar with Kayamo, that songwriting? Yeah, I did that a couple years ago, and honestly sort of dreaded it. Was like, you're going to be on a boat with your fans, and there's no escape. But I didn't play until Wednesday of the week, and so I could pretty much walk around the boat. Nobody knew who I was, and I got to see Prine and Loudon Wainwright and all these awesome things. I loved it.
That's cool.
I loved it. Yeah.
Safe travels, Scott Miller. I appreciate your time on Country Fried Rock.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Country Fried Rock, music uncovered. This week's instrumental is Gilbert Takes the Wheel from Guadalcanal Diary and their album, Walking in the Shadow of the Big Man. You can subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts. Country Fried Rock is a partnership with the nonprofit Florence Regional Arts Alliance. Your donations to this program are tax-deductible to the extent you are eligible under U.S. law. Country Fried Rock radio programs are distributed to public radio through the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org. Copyright 2014 by Lilypad Productions. All rights reserved.
Ever he been helping us some Country Fried Rock.